This is the most insane broken build I've made. This thing makes veteran content look and feel like normal content. The Magicka Templar, arguably the easiest class to play, it has always been an extremely strong and versatile class, with its main skill doing big damage and healing at the same time, along with strong heals, mitigation, and unique buffs make it stand out. Using all this in some very unique sets, we have managed to make the most insane Magicka Templar. As always, this build is capable of all the hardest content in the game, and of course, no trial gear and no mythics required. And what's more is almost all of this gear you can just buy from a guild trader if you didn't want to farm it. Perfect for beginners and veteran players, this build has it all. There will also be a written guide in the description for those who like to have that there as well. In this video, I will show you everything you need to make this work, including race, attributes, Mundus, consumables, gear, skills, champion points, rotation, and even an explanation at the end with some things that really make this build work. Starting with race. First, I'm going to list the choices of what I think is best for this build and then explain why. So first we have Dark Elf, Khajiit, High Elf, and then Breton. The Dark Elf has some great bonuses to weapon and spell damage, but also has bonuses to max Magicka and max stamina. This is going to be our best choice for damage output, while still getting the bonuses to stamina as well. Being high in damage output, but still keep bonuses from stam, works so well for this build. Khajiit has some of the best stats for a solo race, and this build in particular. Increasing health, stamina, and Magicka recovery, also increasing maximum health, Magicka, and stamina, and on top of that, it increases your critical damage and critical healing by 12%. While High Elf technically has the most damage in front of Dark Elf, that difference is less than 1%. Specializing in Magicka, it has bonuses to max mag and weapon and spell damage. It also has the ability to restore Magicka or stamina based on whichever is lowest. You also take 5% less damage when using any ability with a cast time or channel. Because of its lack of bonuses in other ways and just specializing in Magicka, that ranks it at 3 in my opinion. And last we have the Breton. The Breton is the king of Magicka sustain, and a great choice for those new players looking for something super easy. Increasing max Magicka, spell resistance and mag recovery, and reducing the cost of Magicka abilities by 7%. But all that being said, race only matters when you're min-maxing or pushing endgame content. So please, by all means, choose whatever you like. It will still be fine. For example, I'm a Breton in this because I wanted my guy to be an old man. Attributes and Mundus. For this build, we're leaning into our magic damage, so this means we're going all 64 points into Magicka. And for our Mundus, we'll be going with the Lover for this one. We'll be okay for critical chance, so we're going to be chasing the penetration. For consumables, starting off with our food, Jewels of Mizral. This is such a good food that we can start using from level 1 onwards. You can buy the recipe from a guild trader, or if you don't want to make it yourself, you can always just buy stacks of the food itself. On to potions. Our first choice for potions is going to be Essence of Spell Power, granting us 3 major buffs that will help us a lot. First, Major Sorcery, increasing our spell damage by 20%, Major Prophecy, increasing our spell critical chance, and Major Intellect, which increases our Magicka recovery by 30%. Because these potions are pricey at times, I recommend while you're running around doing easy content, just use tri-stat pots or even trash Magicka pots will do fine. Save the good stuff for the harder stuff, solo arenas, dungeons, or even trials. To make the Essence of Spell Power pots yourself, you want to combine Cornflower, Lady Smock, and Water Hyacinth with some Lorcan's Tears. Also, remember to take the passive from the alchemy tree called Medicinal Use. This passive will increase our potions effects by 30%, which will extend our uptime on buffs and allow us to maintain 100% uptime on them. Now for gear, we have something really unique and easy. For this build, I wanted to use something from the new DLC Firesong. For this, we chose to go with the Overland set from Galen, Back Alley Gourmand. This set is so cool. This one gives us crit chance, more crit chance, weapon and spell damage, and then while we have a food buff active, your critical damage and critical healing is increased by 13%. This light set will be all on our body in Divines with max Magicka glyphs. Our second set is going to be Deadly. This PvP set can be acquired in a couple of ways. First, if you want, you can buy it from a vendor in the town of Bruma in Cyrodiil using AP or Alliance points. Second, you can just buy it from a guild trader, although the daggers can be quite pricey. This set is made for Templars by giving us weapon and spell damage, crit chance, and more weapon and spell damage, and for the 5th piece, it increases the damage of your damage over time and channeled abilities do by 15%. You'll see why when we get to abilities, this is a must-have. We'll be putting this set on our jewels, with all being bloodthirsty or infused with spell damage enchantments, and on our daggers, with our main hand being Nirnhome with a flame damage glyph, and our offhand being precise with a poison glyph. Moving on to our monster set, we're going to be putting on Iceheart with 1 piece medium and 1 light, and both in Divines with max Magicka glyphs. This set will give us more crit chance, and when dealing critical damage, we have a 20% chance to gain a damage shield that absorbs 5,000 damage for 6 seconds. While the shield holds, you deal frost damage to all enemies within 5 meters of you every second. This happens every 6 seconds, so it's giving us really good uptimes. And lastly, on our back bar, we'll be slotting the Maelstrom Inferno. This stuff can be obtained through the Maelstrom Arena, you do not need the Perfected, so just run it through normal to get the piece you need. Perfected adds nothing to the build. This is going to increase the damage our Wall of Elements does. Now for skills. First, Barbed Trap. Our source of minor force, increasing our critical damage by 10%, as well as doing great bleed damage. And thanks to the Fighter's Guild passives, Slayer, increasing our weapon and spell damage for each Fighter's Guild ability slotted, and Banish the Wicked, which gives us ultimate for each enemy killed just for being there. This one is too good. Moving on to Radiant Glory, our Execute, burn an enemy with the Ray of Holy Fire, dealing huge magic damage over 1.8 seconds. This deals up to 480% more damage to enemies below 50%. We also heal for 20% of the damage inflicted. I'll get a little bit more into when and how to use this in the explanation part. Next, our Spamble, and the bread and butter of the Templar, Puncturing Sweep, otherwise known as jabs. With this, we launch a relentless assault, striking enemies in front of you 3 times with your Adric Spear, dealing magic damage to enemies in a cone in front of you. Each strike also reduces the movement speed of an enemy by 40%, and we heal for 34% of the damage done. This is a must-have. Next is Purifying Light, summoning an expanding beam of pure sunlight to doom an enemy, dealing magic damage immediately and marking them for 6 seconds. After the duration ends, it bursts, dealing more magic damage, which is increased by the amount of damage we dealt to them over the duration up to 200%. This also heals you and allies in the area every 2 seconds over 10 seconds. Next, Inner Light. This is a buff spot. We don't actually want to cast this. It's here for the passive effect, increasing our max mag by 5%, and its Mage's Guild passive Magicka Controller, which increases our max mag and max recovery by 2% for each Mage's Guild ability slotted. And our front bar ultimate is going to be Flawless Dawnbreaker. This is another buff slot and is here for the same reason as Barbed Trap, for those sweet Fighters Guild passives. Starting on our back bar, Unstable Wall of Elements, slamming our staff down to create an unstable flaming barrier in front of us, dealing flame damage every 1 second. Burning enemies also take 10% more damage from this ability, and when it ends, the barrier explodes for great damage. Next up, Restoring Focus. We're actually going to go with the stamina one of this to balance that sustain. This gives us major resolve for 20 seconds, increasing our physical and spell resistance. We also recover stamina every 1 second over the duration. We don't need to stand in this. If we choose to stand in this rune, we will also heal for a substantial amount every second. This scales off our max health. Then we have Blazing Spear, sending our spear into the heavens to bring down a shower of divine wrath, dealing magic damage to enemies in the area every second for 10 seconds. Next, we also have Razor Caltrops, our source of major breach, reducing the physical and spell resistance of enemies who take damage from it, as well as doing it nice damage over time. Next, we also have Razor Caltrops, our source of major breach, reducing the physical and spell resistance of enemies who take damage from it, as well as doing it nice damage over time. And last, we have Ritual of Retribution. We went with a damage morph for this one. This is a nice purge also, removing 2 harmful effects immediately, and enemies in the area take magic damage every 2 seconds for 20 seconds, which increases per tick by 12%. And finally, our back bar ult, we're going to go with Shooting Star, a high damage and very satisfying ultimate. This is here to get that same passive the Inner Light gets, and it also calls a comet down from the constellations to blast an enemy, dealing flame damage to all enemies in the area and knocking them down and stunning them for 2 seconds. After enemies in the target area take flame damage every 1 second for 12 seconds. You also generate 12 ultimate for each enemy hit by the initial blast. One of the coolest ultimates in the game in my opinion. And that wraps it up for the skills. So onto the champion points. Pretty simple here. For our blue tree, we're going to be going with Fighting Finesse to increase our crit damage and healing even more. Wrathful Strikes to increase our weapon and spell damage. Mastered Arms increasing our damage done with direct damage attack. And Biting Aura increasing our damage done with area of effect attacks. And for our red tree, we're going to be going with Balanced Vitality for max health, Fortified for increased armor, Rejuvenation for health, mag, and stam recovery, and finally our flex spot. I always recommend Slippery for newer players here. Now, for a quick overview of the rotation, with a bit of practice and mastering this, you will see huge damage. Starting out with pre-buffing with Restoring Focus, and then we start Trap, Shooting Star if you have it, Wall, Caltrops, Spear, Ritual of Retribution, Purifying Light, and then Jab. If something runs out, reapply it and then go back to jabbing. If the target is under 40%, you can replace jabs with Radiant Glory, our Execute. Don't stress over this too much. After a bit of practice, it will come to you naturally. The things that we'll be looking at to get the most out of the build here is really taking advantage of the unique Templar passives such as Burning Light. Whenever we deal damage, we generate a stack of Burning Light for 3 seconds. After reaching 4 stacks, we deal magic magic damage to our target. This can stack every half second, so as you can see, this is very easy for us to proc. While we're in the Adric Spear line, we should also talk about how we get so much mitigation with the Spear Wall passive. Basically, when we activate an Adric Spear ability, we gain minor protection for 6 seconds, which reduces our damage taken by 5%. And also the Piercing Spear passive. When we have an Adric Spear ability slotted, it increases our critical damage by 10%. This is why we have Blazing Spear slotted on the back bar, so we have one skill on each, making sure that we are always taking advantage of this. Moving on to Prism in the Dawn's Wrath tree. When we cast a Dawn's Wrath ability, we generate ultimate for 6 seconds. A Purifying Light in this tree lasts 6 seconds, meaning we have great uptimes on this one. Then Illuminate in the same tree. The most unique skill and what a Templar has that no other class has. When casting a Dawn's Wrath ability, it grants minor sorcery to you and your group for 20 seconds, increasing your spell damage by 10%. This is huge. Moving on, taking advantage of Restoring Spirit reduces the health, mag, stam, and ultimate cost of abilities by 5%, giving us a great sustain buff. And our last tree, Restoring Light. The notable one here is Sacred Ground, which while standing in a ritual or rune gives us minor mending, increasing our healing done by 8% and increases the damage we can block by 10%. In combination with food, pots, light armor, and medium armor passives, gear, skills, and so much more, this build ends up basically broken. It can deal out an unbelievable amount of damage, and all while mitigating any incoming damage and consistently healing, all without any mythics or trial gear. I'm honestly at a loss for words on this one. If you have any questions about the build, please feel free to leave a comment or stop by the stream, or even ask in Discord. Links to all of those will be in the description with the written guide as well. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please don't forget to hit that sub button and leave it a like. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.